My name is Margaret Calloway. Everyone calls me Maggie. I'm 32 years old. And 3 weeks ago, my 8-year-old daughter walked through our front door wearing a hat she'd never owned in her life, holding the brim down with both hands like it might fly away if she let go. I crouched in front of her in the entryway, diaper bag still over my shoulder from the school pickup I hadn't done that day, and I smiled the way you smile at a kid when something in your stomach has already gone cold. Cute hat, Ren. Where'd that come from? She didn't answer. She didn't look up. Ren, sweetheart, can you take the hat off for mommy? I lifted it myself, slowly, the way I lift a bandage off a wound at work, when I already suspect what's underneath. Her hair was gone, not trimmed, not styled, gone. 16 inches of dark, spiraling curls that used to catch in her car seat buckle, hacked down to uneven patches. One side was nearly scalped, shaved so close you could see skin. The other side hung in jagged clumps, like the person holding the scissors had started with a plan and lost the thread of it halfway through. Above her left ear, there was a 2.5-inch gash, dried blood crusted along the edge in a thin brown line. In a sandwich bag tucked into her backpack, wrapped around itself like something precious, was her ponytail, cut clean in one piece and saved like a trophy that wasn't hers to keep. Aunt Brenna said my hair wasn't fair to Daisy, Ren told me. She made me wear the hat the rest of the day so nobody would see. What I did with that information over the following 72 hours cost me my husband's family. It nearly cost me my marriage. It dismantled the only extended family my daughter had ever known outside the 4 walls of our own house. And I want to say this clearly, at the very top, before I tell you anything else. I would do every single part of it again, without hesitating, without softening it, without apologizing for a second of it. Welcome to her side of the story, for every woman who held it together alone. If you're new here, this is where we talk about what actually happens after the fight, after the silence, after the moment a quiet woman decides she's done being quiet. No movie-style revenge fantasies, no shouting matches for the cameras, just the real aftermath. If this story hits close to home for you, tell me in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Before I get into that Sunday, you need to understand where I came from, because it explains almost everything I did next. I went into foster care at 6 years old. My parents were killed in a multi-car pileup on an icy overpass outside Delaford, a Tuesday morning in January. 3 cars, black ice, over in seconds. I was placed in my first foster home that Friday. There was a second placement within 4 months, then a third the following year. None of the families were cruel to me. They simply weren't permanent. Nobody was unkind. Nobody stayed long enough to be anything at all. By the time I aged out of the system at 17, I had a GED, 1 duffel bag of belongings, and a single piece of certainty I carried with me everywhere. I was going to build a life that nobody could take away from me, brick by brick, on my own terms. I worked the overnight shift at a gas station while I finished community college credits during the day. I got into a state nursing program, finished it at 22, with just over $40,000 in loans, and took a job in pediatrics at a community hospital outside the city. I turned out to be good at it. Sick children don't care what your childhood looked like. They care whether the person standing over them is calm and steady. And I had made an entire personality out of being calm and steady. That's where I met Owen Calloway. He brought his younger sister into the ER with a sprained wrist from a fall off a porch step. And he stood in the hallway afterward, red-faced about the parking job he'd done in the ambulance bay, and asked me to get coffee with him, before his sister was even out of expo. I said yes before he finished the sentence. We married when I was 23. By then, I'd saved a little over $40,000 of my own money. Every dollar of it tracked in a spreadsheet I still have, and I put it down on a small 3-bedroom house on Birchwood Court, my name on the deed. My down payment. Our home, built on a foundation I had poured myself. Ren came along a year later, with dark curling hair that didn't trace back to anyone we could point to. Not Owen's side. Not mine, as far as I knew anything about my own side. When Eleanor, Owen's mother, held her for the first time in the hospital, she studied my daughter's face for a long moment and said, "Well, she doesn't look much like a Calloway, does she?" I smiled. I genuinely thought, in that moment, that she meant it kindly. I was wrong about that. I would turn out to be wrong about a great many things involving that family, for years before I let myself see it clearly. Holidays with the Callaways were, for a long time, both the hardest part of my week, and the part I clung to hardest. In foster care, holidays mean watching other families through other people's windows. At Eleanor's table, I had an actual seat. It wasn't the best seat. Nobody passed me the rolls without my asking twice. But it existed, and Wren had cousins because of it. Wren had a grandmother who remembered her birthday with a present. Always a little impractical, always wrapped with a careful bow. Wren had Sunday dinners in a stocking with her name spelled out in glitter glue, hanging on Eleanor's mantel every December. I would have sat at the far end of 100 different tables to keep all of that intact for my daughter. The Callaway family ran on one operating principle. Eleanor decided things, and everyone else fell in line. She was 61, widowed 8 years, living alone in a 4-bedroom, colonial on Sycamore Hill that she kept like a museum exhibit, plastic runners over the carpet, no shoes past the front hall, attendance at Sunday dinner treated as close to mandatory as an unpaid obligation can get. Miss one and you heard about it, indirectly, through 3 different relatives, for a month. Owen was her younger child, steady and quiet. The son who mowed her lawn without being asked and fixed her gutters every fall. He loved his mother the way some men love a chain of command, not always comfortably, but completely, without question. His older sister Brenna was 35, divorced, raising her 9-year-old daughter Daisy on her own. 3 years before any of this happened, Brenna had lost her job in marketing and announced she was pivoting into content. Eleanor wrote her a check for $12,000, ring lights, a decent camera, editing software, the whole starter kit. An investment, Eleanor called it. Brenna's always been the creative one in this family, she liked to say. Brenna's account, Brenna Makes It Work, had built up around 78,000 followers by the time any of this started. Her whole brand was the aspirational single mother, color-coordinated meal prep Sundays. Daisy in matching outfits, captions about doing it all, that always landed somewhere between honest and performed. The comments were warm. The brand deals paid enough to keep the lights on, just barely, most months. And me, I sat at the far end of Eleanor's table every single Sunday. Not because there weren't other chairs. Eleanor set my plate there herself, every week, farthest from her, nearest the kitchen doorway. Maggie, could you grab the bread? Maggie, the gravy's gone cold. Would you mind? Maggie, you don't mind, do you? I never minded. That was a bargain I'd made with myself a long time before I ever sat at that table. Any family, even one that seated you closest to the swinging door, was better than the family I actually had, which was none at all. Wren deserved cousins. Wren deserved a grandmother who showed up. I was willing to absorb a lot of small, careless things, to make sure she kept all of it. Eleanor never once called my daughter by her name in 9 years. It was always the curly-haired one. Not Wren, not sweetheart, the curly-haired one. Said the way you'd describe a feature of a house you were thinking about buying. Not unkindly exactly, just without any attachment behind it. How's the curly-haired one doing in school? The curly-haired one's gotten tall. I told myself for years that it was a strange kind of affection. I believed that completely, right up until the moment I stopped being able to. Here's what you need to understand about Brenna's account before I tell you what happened on that Saturday. Because none of it makes sense without this part. It wasn't a side project for her. It was her entire financial identity. About 3 months before the haircut, her engagement numbers dropped nearly 40% in a single quarter. A juice brand that had been paying her monthly pulled out. A children's boutique she'd worked with for 2 years stopped answering her emails. 78,000 followers, and the algorithm had simply moved on to someone newer. So, Brenna tried something different. She launched a series called Cousin Glow. Bren and Daisy doing each other's hair, trying on outfits, little spa day makeovers filmed for the feed. Harmless enough on the surface, right? The first episode got triple her usual views. But the comment section didn't go the way Brenna wanted it to go. Oh my god, the curly-haired one is stunning. Daisy's cute, but the other girl could be a model. More of the curly-haired cousin, please. I watched Brenna sit on Eleanor's couch during a Sunday dinner, thumb moving fast across her screen, deleting comment after comment in real time. After that, the framing started shifting. Ren appeared from the neck down. Ren wore hats in the thumbnails. The camera angles pulled back so her hair barely showed. I once opened Brenna's story and saw Daisy sitting alone in front of the ring light at home. Just sitting there, staring into the lens with nobody else in frame, waiting for direction. That child was living inside her mother's content calendar, and I'd noticed it for a while before I said anything. I mentioned it to Owen, carefully, that I'd rather Ren's face not be part of Brenna's account going forward. He relayed it to his sister. Brenna texted me directly that same night. "It's family content, Maggie. Relax." Eleanor called an hour later. "Brenna's hurt that you don't support her business. She's doing this for Daisy's future. Can't you just be a team player here?" I let it go, the way I always let things go, quietly, quickly. Because in foster care, you learn early that making noise gets you moved to the next house. That survival instinct had kept me safe for 26 years. It very nearly cost my daughter everything. One more detail about that series, because it matters. The third episode, the one that aired the week before the haircut, pulled in 42,000 views. Brenna's best performance in 8 months. Someone in the comments wrote, "The curly hair is everything. Do a whole tutorial on those curls." Brenna screenshotted that comment and sent it to the family group chat with 3 fire emojis. I thought, at the time, that she was proud of my daughter. I understand now that she was counting the views my daughter's hair had generated for her. Those are 2 very different things, and it took me far too long to see the difference. The invitation came on a Thursday afternoon. Brenna's voice on the phone, bright and rehearsed. "Cousin's spa day Saturday, my place. Face masks. Nail polish. Braiding. Daisy's been asking for weeks." Owen was leaving Friday morning for a 3-day work conference out of state. I had a 12-hour overnight shift Saturday into Sunday. I hesitated for half a second, and Brenna caught it instantly. "Come on, Meg. It's facials and glitter polish. The girls will have a blast." Eleanor called 30 minutes later, right on schedule, like they'd planned the 1-2 punch in advance. "Let the girls have their fun, Maggie. Don't be that mother. Don't be that mother." For words that have talked more women into silence than any direct threat ever could, I said yes. Saturday morning I drove Ren over myself. 10 o'clock, bright sun, Daisy already waving from the porch. Through the front window I could see face mask packets laid out on the coffee table. Nail polish lined up in a neat row, towels stacked for effect. Everything arranged like a set, because it was a set. Ren unbuckled and ran up the walk without looking back at the car. Brenna met her at the door with a wide, camera-ready smile. "We're gonna have so much fun." I noticed the ring light already standing in the living room, tripod beside it, ready to go. I told myself it was just for fun videos. The kind every family records now. "Brenna, no posting Ren's face," I said. Of course," she said, waving a hand, already turning back toward the house. I sat in the driveway a moment longer than I needed to. Keys still in my lap, feeling something I couldn't quite name. Not worry exactly. More like the specific unease of handing someone something breakable and watching the way their hand closes around it. Then I drove to work. The plan was for Brenna to drop Ren home Sunday morning. Sunday, 11 a.m., I'd been off shift 3 hours. Still in scrubs. Coffee going cold on the counter. Brenna's SUV pulled into the driveway and gave 2 short taps of the horn. The way you announce a delivery. Not the way you announce a child coming home. The front door opened and Ren walked in carrying a plastic grocery bag. Wearing clothes that weren't hers, Daisy's, a size too big, and a pink bucket hat pulled down low over her eyebrows. "Hey baby, how was spa day?" She shrugged and wouldn't look up. "Where'd you get the hat, sweetheart?" Her fingers tightened around the brim. "Ren, honey, can you take it off for me?" I lifted it gently. The way I take a dressing off a kid's wound at the hospital, already half expecting what I'd find, and still not braced enough for it. The damage was worse in person than it had been in that first half-second glance. 16 inches of hair, gone, hacked to uneven clumps. One side shaved nearly to the scalp. The other left ragged, like whoever held the scissors had lost patience halfway through, and just kept cutting in shorter, angrier strokes. Above her left ear, a laceration over 2 inches long, dried blood rust brown along a thin trail down toward her earlobe. I opened the plastic bag. Her ponytail, the whole thick rope of it, wrapped in a single paper towel like something to be kept. Aunt Brenna said my hair wasn't fair to Daisy. Wren told me again, and made me wear this the rest of the day so nobody would see. She said it the way children report facts they don't fully understand. No anger in her voice. No comprehension, just words an adult had handed her. Repeated back perfectly, like a message in a bottle she had no idea she was carrying. I checked the wound the way I'd check any laceration that walked into my unit. Clean at the start, ragged where the blade had twisted. 2.5 inches, scalp to ear. Not deep enough to need stitches, but deep enough to scar. And deep enough that I understood immediately. A dull blade pressed into a child's scalp with that kind of force means somebody pushed down hard and then lost control of the motion. My coffee sat there going colder by the second. Brenna's SUV was already backing out of the driveway. The house was so quiet I could hear the second hand on the kitchen clock. I set the hat down on the table. I set the bag down beside it. Then I went to the bathroom, pulled my old nursing kit out from under the sink, and I did not call the police. I did not call Owen. I cleaned the blood off my daughter's ear with a sterile pad, and I started taking pictures. There's a switch that flips in nurse mode. You learn to find it. Everything else, the shaking, the anger, the urge to scream, goes dark, and what's left is procedure. I took 12 photographs in total. A close-up of the wound with a small plastic ruler laid beside it for scale. Wide shots, showing the full pattern of damage across her scalp. The ponytail laid flat on a white towel, measured at 16.25 inches. A timestamp burned into every single image. Natural light from the bathroom window, so there'd be no question about color or clarity later. I wrote out Wren's account on a legal pad, word for word as she gave it to me, printed my name at the bottom, dated it, timed it, 12:51 p.m. Then I sealed the ponytail in a gallon freezer bag, and wrote evidence across the front in permanent marker. I called Dr. Tonica Le. She's a pediatrician, my colleague of going on 7 years. The woman who first taught me how to spot non-accidental injury in toddlers back in my 2nd month on the floor. Tonica, I need you to look at Wren tonight. Off the record first, on the record tomorrow. Silence on the line for a beat. Then, I'm on my way. In all those years, I had never once asked Tonica for anything outside protocol. She heard it in my voice immediately and didn't ask a second question. I ran Wren a warm bath, read her 3 chapters of the book she loved that month about a girl who talks to foxes, and watched her eyes get heavy until she slid under the blanket and fell asleep in about 4 minutes. I counted. "Mommy, am I in trouble?" she'd asked, just before she drifted off. "No, baby. You're the only person in this entire story who did anything wrong, and that's not you." I sat on the bathroom floor afterward, the freezer bag on the counter above me, the pink hat sitting on the kitchen table down the hall. 12 photographs already saved in 3 separate places on my phone. I didn't cry. Crying could come later. Right then I had a plan forming, and the plan needed evidence, and the evidence needed a doctor's signature on it. Tonica's headlights swept across the driveway at 9:16 that night. She examined Wren gently while she slept, using a pen light so she wouldn't wake her, checking the wound without disturbing her. She looked at me over the bed and didn't say a word, because she didn't need to. "Stay with her," I said. "I'm going to Miss Tonica caught my arm before I made it to the door. "Maggie, don't do anything stupid. I'm going to ask to see the scissors. That's all." I drove the 20-some minutes to Brenna's place, in total silence, my phone dark on the passenger seat the whole way. I hadn't called Owen yet, not yet. I needed to see Brenna's face before anyone had the chance to coach her on what to say. Porch light on 9:43 p.m. Brenna opened the door in pajamas, surprised first, then guarded. "Maggie, it's late. I need to see the scissors you used on my daughter's hair." She laughed, short, rehearsed. "Oh, come on. It was just a trim that got a little out of hand. The girls were playing salon. A trim doesn't draw blood. Brenna, show me the scissors. Her eyes flicked left, toward the living room. You're seriously overreacting right now. Mom said you'd be like this. Eleanor already knew, which meant Brenna had called her mother before she'd even pulled out of my driveway. Past Brenna's shoulder, I could see the living room ring light still standing. Camera mounted on its tripod, and on a shelf beside the TV. A pair of silver-handled fabric scissors with strands of dark hair still caught in the hinge, visible even from 8 feet away. I raised my phone and took a single photo from the doorway before she could react. Are you serious right now? Good night, Brenna. I walked back to the car. In the rearview mirror, she was still standing in the doorway, her expression somewhere between confused and furious. Confusion, I knew, wouldn't last long in that house. By the time I got home, Eleanor had already texted. Brenna told me you showed up at her house tonight, acting like a crazy person. We need to talk. Sunday dinner tomorrow. I didn't answer. Tonica was sitting in my living room under the lamp, finishing a second form by hand. Ren was still asleep. The freezer bag sat on the counter beside Tonica's pen. For a long moment, I just stood in the doorway, looking at the two objects side by side, the medical paperwork and the severed hair, and understanding that this was the entire before and after of my marriage laid out. Across a kitchen counter at 10:30 on a Sunday night, I had 12 photographs, one more of the scissors, a pediatrician sitting in my living room, and exactly 72 hours before Daisy's birthday party. 7 a.m. Monday, Tonica met us at the clinic before it opened to the public. She documented everything under proper fluorescent light. The wound measured 2¼ inches. No stitches required. But the edges were jagged in a pattern consistent with dull scissors applied with downward force near the scalp, and she flagged the infection risk from a non-sterile blade. While she typed up the report, Ren sat on the exam table, swinging her legs, eating a granola bar I'd packed, no idea what any of the paperwork meant, thinking she was just getting a regular checkup. The report concluded that the laceration was consistent with scissors, applied with force near the auricular region, and that the patient reported the injury had been inflicted by an adult relative during a supervised visit. Tonica signed it, printed 2 copies, and looked at me. I have to ask, Maggie, do you want me to file with CPS right now? Not yet. Give me 48 hours. You know the rules. I do. That's exactly why I'm asking for the 48 hours. I need to know whether my husband knew anything before this turns into a legal process he can't walk back from. She handed me the copies without arguing. 7 years working together had taught her when I meant something. I called Owen from the hospital parking lot the first time we'd spoken since Saturday morning. Hey babe, Mom said. Ren got a little haircut at Brenna's. There's a 2¼ inch laceration above our daughter's left ear. There's blood. I have photographs and a signed medical report from Tonica. I'm sending it all to you right now. Long silence on the line, the kind where you can hear someone quietly rearranging their entire understanding of a person. I'll be home tomorrow night, he finally said. He'd said tomorrow. Eleanor had already said Sunday dinner. The race to control the story was already running, and I was one full day behind a woman who'd been shaping it since Saturday afternoon. Eleanor called it too. Her voice carried that particular sweetness she used whenever she wanted compliance from someone. Maggie, sweetheart, I think we need a family conversation before this gets blown out of proportion. Brenna is devastated. You know? She says you showed up at her house and threatened her. That's not how this family behaves, Maggie. Eleanor, your daughter cut my child's hair without my permission and drew blood doing it. In this state, that's assault on a minor. The sweetness disappeared instantly. Now, you listen to me. Ren told Brenna she wanted a haircut. Brenna got carried away. Fine, but you are not turning a family matter into a legal one. Then she said the sentence I will never forget. It's just hair, Maggie. Stop making this into a crisis. 3 syllables that, in her mind, erased a 2¼ inch wound, a freezer bag, 12 photographs, and the trust of an 8. We're done talking, Eleanor. I hung up the first time in 9 years I'd ever ended a call with her first. Within 20 minutes, 4 texts arrived from 4 different numbers. Eleanor's sister, you're trying to get Brenna arrested. She's a single mother. Owen's uncle. Can't you two just talk it out like adults? A cousin I'd met exactly twice in 9 years. Think about the kids. Maggie, Eleanor's neighbor, praying for your family during this difficult time. 4 messages in 20 minutes. Clearly not sent one at a time. A broadcast? The story had already been written and distributed. Maggie, the outsider with no real family of her own, trying to destroy the family who'd been generous enough to take her in. I screenshotted every text and saved them in a folder labeled Callaway. Then I picked Ren up from school, made her mac and cheese, and helped her practice her spelling words like it was any other ordinary Monday, because that's exactly what she needed it to be. Owen walked in Tuesday night at 7, bag still in his hand, eyes red from the flight. He didn't say hello. He walked straight to where I was sitting at the kitchen table and said, "Show me." I handed him my phone. He scrolled slowly through the photographs. His jaw tightened on the third one, the close-up with the ruler. By the 6th, he was breathing through his mouth. "Why didn't you call me the second it happened?" "I called you Monday morning, Owen. Your mother called you Saturday night." He set the phone down on the table, understanding settling over his face. Eleanor had gotten to him first, and softened the whole story into a haircut, instead of an injury. "Brenna made a terrible mistake," he said quietly. "But can we keep this inside the family? If a stranger at the park had done this to Ren, what would you do right now?" "That's different." "How is it different?" He didn't have an answer. It was the honest kind of silence, the kind where a person knows that whatever they'd say next would be indefensible out loud. I laid it all out for him. His mother had spent the entire day calling relatives to say I was unstable and trying to destroy his sister. I had called exactly one person, our daughter's doctor. "So tell me," I said, "who's actually making this into a crisis?" He put his head in his hands, elbows on the table, caught between the family that raised him and the family he'd built with me. He sat like that for a long time. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to look at those photos again. Then I want you to decide whose daughter matters more to you, yours or your mother's." He flinched. I meant that question for him too, and we both knew it. That night I slept in Ren's room. Her hair was already growing back, in soft, dark fuzz that caught the glow of the nightlight. I lay beside her and opened my laptop, because there was something I needed to check. 2 years earlier, Brenna had set up a shared Google Photos album for the whole family. Callaway Memories. She called it birthdays, Thanksgivings, Daisy's soccer games. She'd asked me to add photos of Ren too, so the kids would have something to look back on someday. I'd forgotten the album existed, but shared access doesn't expire on its own unless someone actively removes you. I opened it and scrolled to Saturday's date. 47 new photos. Face masks, nail polish, 2 little girls giggling with cucumber slices over their eyes. Normal, wholesome, then photo. 38 Ren, sitting in a dining chair, pulled in front of the ring light. Brenna standing behind her with silver scissors in hand, smiling directly into the camera. The tripod was visible in the mirror behind them. Photo 39, the scissors mid-cut, Brenna's hand pulling the ponytail taut. Her expression focused and professional, like she was filming a tutorial. Photo 40, Ren's face, not crying, not smiling. The particular blankness of a child being told to hold still for something she doesn't understand. After photo 40, 6 more images had clearly been uploaded and then deleted. The shared album still showed their thumbnails. Small, blurry, but visible. Google holds deleted photos in a recovery folder for 30 days, and even at thumbnail size I could see it. Photo 43, Ren's hand pressed against her ear. A dark smear, the pink bucket hat already pulled low over her face. She'd photographed it. She'd had the ring light running. She'd had Daisy watching from the couch the entire time. This had not been a spa day that simply went wrong. This had been a content shoot in which the talent bled, and someone had kept filming. I screenshotted every thumbnail and recorded the metadata upload times, deletion times, all of it. Then I found her shared Google Drive folder, labeled Content Drafts, that I'd had access to since the Thanksgiving montage 2 years before. Access she'd never revoked. Inside, organized by date, dozens of video files, each one titled and formatted for upload. Run with the discipline of an actual content business. The most recent file, cowsinglab_ep4_final.mp4, dated Saturday, 4:51 p.m. I pressed play. It opened on Ren and Daisy in face masks, laughing, upbeat music underneath, a cursive text overlay reading Cousin Globe EP, for 3 seconds of Brenna's voice. Okay girls, time for the big makeover. Cut to Ren in the chair, ring light glowing, Brenna brushing slowly through her curls, letting the camera linger on the color. Voiceover, Ren's got this incredible hair, right? But today we're giving both girls a fresh summer look. Then the scissors appeared. Brenna positioned the ponytail, smiled straight into the lens, and cut. She kept cutting. The ponytail came free in one motion, and she held it up to the camera like a prize. Ren sat frozen in the chair. At 2 minutes 14 seconds, the blade caught the top of her ear. Ren cried out a short, sharp sound. Brenna's hand jerked, and her voice went suddenly flat. Oh whoops. Just a little nick, sweetie. The video cut to black at 2:18. Everything after that, the blood, the crying, whatever came next, had been edited out entirely. The file was exported, rendered in full resolution, ready to post. The only reason it never went up was the blood. I downloaded it, backed it up to the cloud, and saved a second copy to a thumb drive. On the desk beside my laptop sat the freezer bag with 16 inches of my daughter's hair sealed inside it, next to a 3-minute-18-second video of the woman who'd cut it, smiling for the camera the entire time. I watched it a third time. Each pass I caught something new. The ring light reflected in Ren's eyes. Brenna rehearsing her opening line twice before getting it right. Daisy on the couch in the background hugging a throw pillow to her chest, completely still. And Ren, my Ren, sitting perfectly motionless, because she trusted every adult in that room. I closed the laptop at 1:24 in the morning. I did not sleep. If you're the kind of person sitting here, thinking you'd have driven straight back to that house at 2 a.m., I understand the impulse completely. But I've spent 7 years in pediatrics, and I've watched plenty of cases fall apart because someone reacted before they documented. Evidence disappears. Stories shift overnight. Witnesses develop convenient memory gaps. If you're the kind of person who already knows that patience isn't the same thing as weakness, go ahead and hit subscribe now, because this story is nowhere near finished. Wednesday, Eleanor called a family meeting at her house. 7 o'clock. Everyone needs to be there. Owen thought we should go. Let's at least hear them out. Maybe there's an apology coming. I agreed. But I brought my phone loaded with every screenshot, every timestamp, every photograph, not to show off. To know I had it, in case I needed it. Eleanor's living room was arranged like a small courtroom. Coffee on the sideboard, a lemon cake on the counter, Brenna's favorite, Uncle Pete and Aunt Carol on the love seat. Brenna on the couch, tissue already in hand, eyes Eleanor opened with, "We're all family here. Maggie, I know you're upset, but Brenna hasn't slept in 3 days." Brenna, right on cue. I was just trying to bond with her. She said she wanted a new style and I went too far. I'm so sorry. Delicate, careful tears. The kind that don't smudge mascara. Uncle Pete leaned forward. See, she's apologized. Let's move past this. Brenna, I said quietly, did Ren ask you to set up a ring light and film the whole thing? The room shifted slightly. Brenna's tears paused. Did Ren ask you to title it Cousin Globe Episode 4 and export it for Instagram? How did you shared your Google Drive with me 2 years ago. The file is still there. Dated Saturday, 4:51 p.m. Uncle Pete looked at Brenna. Aunt Carol looked at Eleanor. Eleanor looked at me with something new behind her eyes. Calculation. That doesn't matter, Eleanor said. What matters is what matters, I said, is that an 8-year-old has a laceration on her scalp, and the woman who caused it filmed the entire thing for her social media account. I pulled the pink bucket hat out of my bag and set it on the coffee table between the cups. She sent my daughter home wearing this so nobody would notice what had happened underneath it. Nobody touched it. It sat there like something radioactive. Aunt Carol moved her mug away from it without seeming to realize she'd done it. Uncle Pete cleared his throat. Now Maggie, I'm sure Brenna didn't mean, have you seen the video, Pete? He blinked. What video? I looked around the room. Eleanor's expression was locked shut. Brenna was staring at the carpet. Nobody else in that room had been told there was a video. Eleanor had been managing the information carefully, and the version everyone else had received was simply, "Maggie is overreacting to a haircut. Ask Brenna," I said. "Ask her about the video she filmed while cutting my daughter's hair." Everyone turned toward Brenna. She said nothing. Her tissue had been shredded in her lap. And then Eleanor said the thing that ended any possibility of this staying contained inside the family. She stood up, and whatever was happening behind her eyes had finished calculating. What came out wasn't grief. It wasn't shame. It was a decision. "Maggie, if you take this outside this family, I will call my lawyer. Owen has equal custody rights, and I will make sure a judge hears exactly what kind of mother turns a haircut into a federal investigation. I will push for supervised visitation so fast your head will spin." She wasn't threatening to take Ren because she believed I was an unfit mother. She was protecting a $12,000 investment that happened to be crying into a tissue on her couch. The room went still. Aunt Carol's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. Brenna whispered, "Mom, don't." "No, Brenna, she needs to hear this." Eleanor took a step toward me. "We gave you a family. We gave you a name. You were nothing before us. Nothing before us." The words sat in that living room like smoke, and I let them sit there. "Thank you for being so clear, Eleanor." I picked the pink hat back up off the coffee table and walked to the front door. Owen was already behind me. "Maggie, wait, let me talk to her." "Owen, your mother just threatened to take my daughter away in order to protect your sister's Instagram account. There's nothing left to talk about." He followed me to the car and didn't say a single word the entire drive home. Ren was asleep when we got in. The sitter said she'd eaten 2 bowls of soup and drawn a picture of a cat with extremely long hair. I paid the sitter and locked the door. Then I called Tonica. "File the report tonight." A breath on the other end of the line. "It'll be submitted by morning." Eleanor had wanted this to stay inside the family. She had made absolutely certain it couldn't. Thursday morning, Tonica filed the mandatory reporter form with Child Protective Services, the medical report, 12 photographs, Ren's written statement in my hand. At 10 o'clock, I sat across from Carol Whitman, 52 family law attorney, recommended by the hospital's legal department. Her desk had no personal photos, just case files and a coffee mug that said due process on it. I laid out everything: photographs, the medical report, the Google Drive video with timestamps, the screenshots of deleted thumbnails showing blood, Brenna's public Instagram account linked to a string of paid partnerships. Carol watched the video twice. The second time, she paused it right at 2:18. The moment the scissors caught Ren's ear, and Brenna said, "Whoops. The laceration alone is borderline for a criminal referral," Carol said. "But filming a minor without parental consent, for commercial content on a monetized platform, that opens up an entirely separate door. How wide? Wide enough for an emergency protective order, restricting unsupervised contact between Brenna and your daughter. The CPS report gives it real weight. File it, Maggie. Once it's in the system, there's no quiet way to pull it back out, I know." She nodded and started typing. That evening I found Owen out on the back porch. He'd been quiet all day, the kind of quiet that means a person is arguing with themselves and losing. "I need you to decide," I told him. "Not tomorrow. By Saturday." "Why Saturday?" "Because Saturday is Daisy's birthday party. 50 people, a live stream, and your sister sent me that invitation 3 weeks ago." He looked at me. "Auntie said my hair wasn't fair to Daisy." I said again, our daughter's exact words. "That's what Ren told me, Owen. Those were the words your sister put directly in her mouth." He closed his eyes. "She really said it that exact way." CPS contacted Brenna that same afternoon. Her phone rang 14 times within an hour. I know because Owen's phone rang 14 times too. That night, Brenna went live on Instagram. I didn't watch it happen in real time. A coworker sent me a screenshot afterward. Brenna sat in her content chair, ring light glowing, eyes glassy in exactly the right way. "Some of you may have noticed I've been a little quiet this week," she said. "I'm going through something really hard with a family member. Someone I trusted took a private situation and is trying to turn it into something it isn't. A pause, one I wiped delicately. I'm a single mom. I make mistakes. But I love my niece, and I would never, ever hurt a child. Her followers responded exactly the way an algorithm-trained audience responds to vulnerability. Stay strong, mama. We believe you. Haters gonna hate. You're an amazing mother. Don't let anyone tell you different. She never said my name. She didn't have to. In a town of about 11,000 people, everyone already knew. By Friday morning, I had 4 separate messages from mutual acquaintances. Brenna says you're trying to get her arrested over a haircut. I've seen you at school pickup. You don't seem like the type, but honestly, this seems extreme. You know Brenna's barely getting by, right? She depends on that account. I answered none of them. Plenty of people had opinions. Not one of them had asked to see the photographs. Not one of them had asked how Ren was doing. For messages about Brenna's feelings, 0 about my daughter's ear. Every nurse learns this lesson eventually. The person who speaks first controls the narrative. The person who speaks last controls the outcome. My only move was a single screenshot Brenna's public, monetized account. The same one that had commercially exploited my daughter's image. Now posting tearful damage control about an active CPS investigation. I forwarded it to Carol with one line. She's using her commercial platform to shape public opinion around an open case. Carol wrote back almost immediately. Save everything. This actually helps us. 2 days left. Daisy's birthday party was Saturday at 2 o'clock. 50 guests, a live stream, and an invitation still hanging on my refrigerator under a magnet shaped like a sunflower. Friday morning, after I dropped Ren at school, her teacher, Mrs. Donahue, pulled me into an empty classroom. Ren told the class about her haircut yesterday. She showed them her ear. She said her aunt did it. I waited. I've already filed a report with the school administration. I wanted you to know, thank you. She touched my arm before I left. She also said, and I'm quoting her exactly, my mom took pictures so nobody forgets what happened. I just want you to know, your daughter trusts you completely. I made it to my car before my hands started shaking. 7 days of being steady, 7 days of nurse mode holding, and that single sentence cracked it for about 90 seconds. Then I put the car in drive and kept going. At the hospital, 2 of my coworkers, Tara and Renee, found me in the break room. Tonica told us. Brenna's Instagram thing is going around. What do you need? 2 things. Witnesses who can confirm Ren's injury on the record if it ever comes to that. And someone to watch her Saturday afternoon. Tara pointed at herself. Renee nodded. At 4 o'clock my phone rang from an unknown number. Maggie, this is Linda Pruitt. I live next door to Eleanor. I knew Linda vaguely, 58 years old. 4 grown kids. Same church as Eleanor. We'd spoken maybe 5 times in 9 years. Eleanor's been telling the whole neighborhood you're unstable and trying to ruin Brenna's life. I want you to know I don't believe a word of it. And I'll be at that birthday party tomorrow. Linda, if you're there, I may need to ask you to look at something. Honey, I raised 4 kids and buried a husband. You don't owe me an explanation. For the first time in 7 days, I exhaled all the way down to the bottom of my lungs. Friday night, Ren asleep, Owen and I at the kitchen table under the overhead light, nothing else on between us. My mom called again, he said flat, exhausted. She says if you go to that party tomorrow, she's calling the police for harassment. I was invited 3 weeks ago by your sister Owen. I know. He set his phone on the table between us. I watched the video this afternoon, my chest tightened. When, a few hours ago, Mom kept telling me it was just fun photos, that you were twisting everything. So I went into the drive folder myself. He stared at the table. I watched my sister cut our daughter's hair while smiling for a camera. I watched her hold up the ponytail like she'd won something. He stopped, started again. And I called Mom. I told her I'd seen it. What did she say? She said I shouldn't have been digging through Brenna's private files. I let that sit between us. That's her answer, Owen. Your daughter is bleeding on camera, and your mother's concern is that you found out. He scrubbed a hand over his face like he was trying to physically rearrange it. I'm coming with you tomorrow, are you sure? Because once we walk in there, there's no taking it back. I should have said something Monday. I should have said it Saturday, the second my mom called me in Dallas. I believed her because I always believe her, and his voice broke. I'm sorry. He set his hand on the table, palm up. I didn't take it. Not yet. But I didn't pull away from it either. Some things you rebuild 1 inch at a time, the same slow way hair grows back. We sat like that for a long time, the kitchen clock ticking. Saturday, 12 hours away. Saturday, 9 in the morning, party at 2. I showered, put on a plain navy blouse and dark jeans. No jewelry, nothing beyond what I'd wear for a grocery run. I wasn't there to put on a performance. I was there to deliver a file, the way you'd hand someone a printout from a doctor's office. 3 copies of Tanika's medical report, 3 sets of key screenshots. The Google Drive video, with its title and timestamp clearly visible. The deleted photo thumbnails. The Instagram story where Brenna had positioned herself as the victim. Each set went into a clear plastic sleeve, all 3 sleeves inside a single manila folder. On top, a redacted CPS case number printed on hospital letterhead, not as a threat, just confirmation that this was already inside the system, and no amount of Sunday dinner diplomacy was going to undo it now. Ren went to Tara's house for the day. I packed her a bag, books, swimsuit, her stuffed box. She stood in the doorway while I zipped it. Is Aunt Brenna going to be mad at me? I knelt down to her eye level. Nobody is ever allowed to be mad at you for having your own hair. Nobody, ever. She nodded, very serious. Can Tara make pancakes? I already asked her. She said yes. Tara picked her up at 11. Ren waved from the back seat. I waved back. Owen was already in the car, engine running. I climbed in with the manila folder on my lap. It weighed almost nothing. 12 printed pages telling an entire story in timestamps, measurements, and medical terminology. We drove the 18 minutes to Eleanor's house in total silence. Radio off, windows up, Owen's hands steady on the wheel the whole way. You don't have to say anything, I told him. Just stand next to me. I will be, he said, and for the first time in 6 days, I believed him. Eleanor's backyard looked like something out of a catalog. Pink and purple balloons tied to every fence post. A banner across the porch, Happy 9th birthday, Daisy. A long table draped in white linen, with a 3-tier cake at the center. Streamers, confetti, 50-some guests holding paper plates. And near the cake table, the ring light already set up. Brenna's phone mounted on the tripod with a red recording dot blinking. She was live streaming the party. Brenna spotted us first. Her face cycled fast, surprise, then anger, then the rehearsed smile that paid her bills. Maggie, Owen, so glad you could make it. Camera voice angled slightly toward the tripod. Performance switched on instantly. Eleanor materialized at the gate. I'm honestly surprised you had the nerve to show up. We're here for Daisy's birthday, Mom, Owen said. Steady? Eleanor ignored him entirely, eyes locked on me. Where's Ren? With a friend? You didn't bring your own daughter to her cousin's party. The kind whose daughter still has a healing wound above her ear. Eleanor. She went red and turned away toward the cake table without another word. Owen and I found 2 chairs near the back fence. I kept the manila folder tucked flat under my arm. Across the yard, Linda Pruitt caught my eye in her floral blouse and gave me a single small nod. The kind of nod women give each other when they've agreed on something without needing to speak it out loud. Brenna circulated through the crowd, phone in hand, working the room for the stream. Look at this turnout. Daisy waved to everyone watching. On the gift table she picked up a pair of silver scissors to cut the ribbon off a wrapped box. The exact same wooden-handled scissors that had cut my daughter's hair and drawn blood from her ear. Now being used to open birthday presents in front of 50 guests. I scanned the yard. Kids chasing each other around the swing set. Dads near the grill in matching polo shirts. Moms holding plastic cups of wine. Daisy in a purple dress and a plastic tiara, running between clusters of guests, collecting compliments. A completely ordinary Saturday. Except it wasn't. Because somewhere in that yard, at least 4 people already knew exactly what had happened to Ren, Eleanor, Brenna, Owen, and me, and the gap between what 50 people in that yard believed and what the 4 of us actually knew was wide enough to fit every balloon, every streamer, and every slice of that cake inside it with room to spare. My grip tightened on the folder. We're almost to the moment I know you've been waiting for. But before we get there, if you've ever sat in a room full of people who hurt your child and had to hold yourself together anyway, I see you. If you're still sitting at that table right now, I hope this story gives you permission to finally stand up from it. Like this video and subscribe if you're still with me, because what happened next at that party changed everything. Cake time. All 50-some guests gathered into a loose half circle. Eleanor lit the candles. Brenna held her phone up high, live stream and recording both running. Make a wish, baby. Daisy blew out 9 candles to applause and cheering. Eleanor wrapped an arm around Brenna and squeezed. My girls, my beautiful girls. I clapped along to this. Was Daisy's day, and she hadn't done a single thing wrong in any of it. After the cake was cut and plates passed around, Brenna stepped up to a small projector she'd set up on the patio table, screen mounted against the fence. Okay everyone. I put together a little montage of Daisy's year. You might recognize a few clips from our fun cousin's spa day last weekend. My hand froze halfway to my mouth, fork still loaded with cake. She pressed play. The montage rolled Daisy at the beach, Daisy's school play, Daisy and Ren in cucumber slice face masks, giggling, green goo, harmless and sweet. Then Daisy and Ren painting each other's nails. The crowd laughed warmly. Then an 8-second clip, Ren in the chair. Ring light visible, Brenna's fingers and her curls. Scissors just entering the frame. Cursive text overlay reading Cousin Globe coming soon. A school mom nearby said AW. That's so cute. She had no idea what happened 4 seconds after that clip cut away. Brenna was beaming, scanning the crowd for reactions, working the room. I looked at Owen. He was already looking at me. His jaw was set, his plate abandoned on the chair beside him. He nodded once. I set my fork down. I stood up. The chair scraped against the patio stone, loud enough that several people near me turned to look. Brenna saw me on my feet. Her smile held, but her eyes moved fast, left to right, already calculating. Maggie, you okay? Did you want to say something? Actually, yes. I walked toward the projector. Steady, deliberate. The same pace I use walking into a room where a child is coding. 1 foot, then the other. No rush, no wasted motion. The yard went quiet around me. Forks paused midair. 30 or 40 faces turning my direction. I opened the manila folder. Brenna's smile finally cracked. What are you doing? Eleanor was on her feet instantly. Maggie, this is not the time or the place. Eleanor, you told me on Tuesday this was just hair. You told me Wednesday I was nothing before this family. You told Owen I was twisting everything. My voice carried, not raised, just clear. The way a voice carries when nothing else in a room is competing with it. So let me untwist it, right here, in front of everyone. I turned to face the crowd. 50 faces. Linda Pruitt, already standing. A few of Brenna's church group friends with phones half. Eleanor's circle clustered near the lemonade table. My daughter came home from this house last Sunday wearing a hat she'd never owned before that day. Underneath it, a 2 1/4 inch cut above her ear, and her hair chopped down to the scalp on one side. Her 16-inch ponytail was sitting in a plastic bag. A woman near the front pressed a hand flat against her chest. She is 8 years old. I pulled the first sheet from the folder. This is a signed medical report from Dr. Tonica Lavalette, board-certified pediatrician. It documents a laceration on my daughter's scalp, consistent with scissors applied with downward force near her ear. I held it up, angled toward the closest row so the letterhead was visible. Someone near the front gasped audibly. I pulled the second sheet. This is a screenshot from Brenna's own Google Drive. A video file titled Cousin Glow Up, Episode 4, Final Cut. Filmed in this very house last Saturday at 4:51 p.m., it shows Brenna cutting my daughter's hair under a ring light. On camera, with a title card already designed and ready to post, Brenna stepped forward. That's private. You had no right to. You shared that folder with me 2 years ago, Brenna. To help with the Thanksgiving montage. You never removed my access. She stopped talking. I pulled the third sheet. These are thumbnails of 6 photographs that were deleted from the shared family album right after the cut. Even at thumbnail size, you can see my daughter holding her ear. You can see the blood. The yard had gone completely silent. Somewhere behind the fence, a neighbor's sprinkler clicked on and off. Brenna turned to Eleanor. "Mom, do something." Eleanor was white, then suddenly flushed red, hands curling into fists at her sides. She looked at me, then out at 50 faces watching her. And something inside her finally broke loose, the thing she'd been holding back all week. "You are nothing before this family," she shouted, actually shouted, in front of her church friends, her neighbors, her granddaughters, classmates, parents. "We took you in. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us." I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice to match hers. I didn't take a single step back. Linda Pruitt rose from her chair, her voice carrying clean across the whole yard. "Eleanor, I've seen the photographs. That child was bleeding." 3 more women stood up after her. A school mom, let her finish talking. A woman from the church group, "Eleanor. Sit down," a neighbor I didn't even recognize. "Show us the pictures." The photographs began moving hand to hand through the crowd. I passed the close-up of Wren's ear to Linda. She held it at arm's length. The way you hold something that physically hurts to look at, then passed it down the row. I could track its path through the yard by the reactions alone. The sharp inhale, the slow head shake, a hand pressed to a mouth. A man near the back, Daisy's soccer coach, I think said, "Wait, this happened to the little curly-haired girl last Saturday. In this house," I said. On camera, Brenna's phone was still mounted on the tripod, still recording live stream, still active. 300-some strangers were watching all of this unfold in real time. And 50 people standing in that backyard were passing photographs of my daughter's wound over half-eaten plates of birthday cake. Brenna lunged for the manila folder. "Give that to me." "You can't show people my Owen stepped between us. Close." "Brenna, stop. She's ruining Daisy's birthday. You cut our daughter's hair to the scalp and filmed it for Instagram. Brenna, you ruined this yourself." His voice was low, controlled, final. Brenna backed into a chair and sat down hard, the crying starting up loud and unguarded now. "I'm a single mom. I'm just trying to survive. Nobody understands how hard this is." For half a breath I saw something real underneath the ring light version of her, exhausted. Broke. A woman whose entire financial identity had collapsed down to how many strangers double-tapped her content. Then she looked up at me, eyes wet, and said, "If you had just let me use Wren in the videos, none of this would have happened." Whatever sympathy I'd briefly felt vanished completely. She wasn't sorry for cutting my daughter. She was sorry I hadn't cooperated. Eleanor was still standing, voice ragged now. "This is family business. Everyone needs to leave." Nobody moved an inch. A woman in a blue cardigan from the church group said, "Eleanor, we all need to see those photographs." I handed Linda the print of Wren's wound, ruler beside it, dried blood, scalp clearly visible. She looked at it for 3 full seconds, then passed it down the row. More head shakes, more hands over mouths. Brenna's phone, still on the tripod, red light still blinking. She'd forgotten to end the stream. In the live chat, someone had typed, "Wait, what is happening right now? Are those real photos?" Another reply underneath it, "Is that blood on a kid?" 300+ people, watching. I didn't look at the tripod. I didn't look at Brenna or Eleanor. I turned to face the crowd directly. I didn't come here today to ruin anyone's birthday party. I came because last Sunday, my 8-year-old daughter asked me if she was in trouble. She thought she'd done something wrong, because an adult cut her hair and told her it wasn't fair to someone else. I let that sit for a second. I've already filed a report with Child Protective Services. I've filed for an emergency protective order restricting unsupervised contact between Brenna and my daughter. I didn't want to do either of those things. I had to, because when I asked this family to address what had happened, I was told it was just hair. I turned to Eleanor directly. She was standing by the cake table, breathing hard, mascara streaked. "You said I was nothing before this family. You're right about one part of that. I was a foster kid. I had nobody to protect me. I know exactly what that feels like. I kept my voice level the whole way through. That is precisely why I will never, ever let my daughter feel that. Not for one single second. I picked the manila folder back up, picked up the pink bucket hat off the chair where I'd set it down when we arrived, and held both. Owen, we're leaving. We walked together through the yard, past the balloons and the streamers and the 3-tier cake with 8 melted down candles still sitting in it. Nobody stopped us. Eleanor was shouting something behind us I didn't turn around to hear. Brenna was sobbing. But 50 people stood completely silent, and sometimes silence is the loudest verdict a room full of people can hand down. By the time we pulled into our own driveway, the internet had already started doing the rest of the work on its own. Brenna's accidental livestream peaked somewhere around 340 viewers, with at least a dozen separate clips recorded and clipped out. They spread through local community Facebook groups by Saturday night, not because I shared anything, not because Owen shared anything, but because 50 people standing in that backyard had watched. A grown woman scream "you were nothing" at the person holding signed medical evidence of a child's injury. By midnight, Brenna's follower count had dropped from 78,000 to just under 61,000. Her last remaining brand partner, a small boutique called Hollow and Vine, posted a single line the next morning: "We are no longer affiliated with this creator." Eleanor called Owen 7 times between 9 and midnight. He didn't answer once. My phone stayed completely dark. I posted nothing. I shared nothing. I tagged no one. I picked Ren up from Tara's at 8 that evening. She'd had pancakes and watched a movie about a dog who rides a surfboard, and she was smiling. I put her to bed that night in her own pajamas, in her own room, in the house I had bought with my own savings. No one else's name on it but mine. Her hair was coming in soft now, half an inch of dark new growth catching the nightlight. Some things grow back. Some things don't. 2 weeks out, here's where everything landed. CPS closed their initial investigation with a formal warning placed on Brenna's record. No criminal charges. But the file exists permanently, and if there's ever another incident involving any child, not just Ren, it triggers an automatic escalation. The emergency protective order was granted the following Tuesday by a family court judge. Brenna is barred from unsupervised contact with Ren drop-offs, pickups, visits. All of it require a third adult present. She agreed to the terms without contesting any of it. Carol said that was the smartest decision Brenna had made all month. I said it was probably the only smart decision. Eleanor went quiet. No more Sunday dinner invitations. No group texts. No calls. 3 women from her church group told Owen separately that they needed some distance from Eleanor for a while. One of them, the woman in the blue cardigan, mailed me a card with no message inside. Just her phone number and the words, "If you ever need anything." Brenna's Instagram went private the following Monday. The entire Cousin Globe series was deleted. Her follower count settled somewhere around 54,000 and kept slowly dropping. As of this recording, she hasn't posted in 2 weeks. Owen moved into our guest room for a week at my request, then moved back. We started couples counseling not because I've forgiven everything, but because he wants to learn how to stop defaulting to his mother's version of events the second something gets uncomfortable. Our therapist, Dr. Sandoval, asks questions nobody in the Calloway family has ever been asked out loud. Things like, whose feelings are you actually managing right now, and why? I filed a formal request with Ren's school. Only Owen and I are authorized for pickup. No other family member without written, signed permission from both of us. Daisy started school counseling after her teacher noticed she performs for every camera she encounters, classroom tablets, assembly recordings, even the hallway security monitor. The counselor called Brenna in for a conference, and Brenna was required to complete a parenting awareness course as part of the CPS recommendation. I never got an apology from Brenna. I never got one from Eleanor. And for the first time in 9 years, I genuinely didn't need one. Ren's hair is a little over 3 inches now, coming back in soft and curling exactly the way it used to. She wears it with a blue headband she picked out herself at the drugstore, standing in that accessories aisle for 11 full minutes deciding. 11 minutes of an 8-year-old exercising complete authority over her own body. And I timed it, and I smiled, and I didn't rush her once. Last Tuesday she asked me, "Mommy, when my hair grows long again, can I decide who's allowed to touch it?" "Always," I told her. "It was always only ever yours to decide." I spent 26 years believing that any family was better than no family at all. One married into one. I sat at the far end of that table for 9 years. I smiled through the curly-haired one and through every plate set farthest from the head of the table, because I genuinely believed that was simply the cost of belonging somewhere. It isn't. Belonging was never supposed to ask you to hide your daughter's blood under a pink hat. And if it does ask you that, it was never really belonging in the first place. It was just proximity to people who needed an audience more than they ever needed a family. That's the whole story. One pink bucket hat, one manila folder, and a mother who finally stopped sitting at the end of the table. If this reminded you that protecting your child is never an overreaction, send it to someone who needs to hear that today. Drop a comment below, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time, right here on Her Side of the Story.